Hi Rafi, how are you Rafi? How are you dear Rafi? Thank you for your joining. Hurry up everybody, have to write your name in the chat. And a lot of love and respect for you joining. Every respecting member, please write your name in the chat guys. Comment your name guys. How are you dear Rafi? Please everybody to write your name in the chat guys. I want a lot of love and respect for you joining. The raining, how are you dear? The raining, how are you dear? Thank you so much for you joining dear the raining. Please everybody to write your name in the chat. Taylor, how are you dear Taylor? Please guys, you should have to write your name in the chat. I want to know from the every respected member, where are you from watching the screen. You wanna have to like and subscribing to the channel. Hurry up everybody. Sayo, how are you dear Sayo? Thank you so much for you joining, respected Sayo. Larry, how are you Larry? Hurry up guys, do like and subscribing to the channel. Tash, how are you dear Tash? Thank you so much for you joining. Long, how are you dear Long? Thank you so much for you joining. Please guys, you should have to write your name in the chat guys. I want to know from the every and the respected member, where are you from watching the screen guys? Danala, how are you Danala? Increase the likes guys and read your name, send the laughing disco for the support guys. Megan, how are you dear Megan? Thank you so much for you joining. Welcome dear. Any person can send the laughing disco or do the super chat guys. Laura, how are you dear Laura? Thank you for you joining my dear. Please guys, every person to write your name in the chat guys. Eric, how are you dear Eric? Thank you so much for you joining with the hurry up guys, every person to write your name in the chat. Rahul, how are you dear Rahul? Thank you so much for you joining. No, How are you, dear No? Thank you so much for you joining, dear No. Kyle, how are you, Kyle? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Kyle. Please, every person, to write your name in the chat, guys. Kashev, how are you, Kashev? How are you, Kashev? How are you, dear Kashev? Amber, how are you, dear Amber? Thank you so much for you joining, respected Amber. Medican, how are you, Medican? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys, or finger hearts. You wanna send the laughing disco or finger hearts for the support, guys. Medican, how are you, Medican? Martha, how are you, Martha? Increase the likes, guys. Sajjad, how are you, dear Sajjad? Please, guys, you should to write your name in the chat, guys. Lal, how are you, dear Lal? Thank you so much for your joining. Bahadur, how are you, Bahadur? Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Hector, how are you, dear Hector? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys, or do the super chat. If you wanna can support, you should have to send the laughing disco, guys. Lexi, how are you, Lexi? Sivale, how are you, Sivale? Samaya, how are you, Samaya? Harry, how are you, dear Harry? Please, guys, do like and subscribing to the channel. Every person has to write your name in the chat, guys. Ten people is watching, guys. Every person have to write your name in the chat, guys. Anyone can send the laughing disco, guys. Staircase, how are you, Staircase? Paston, how are you, Paston? Puri, how are you, Puri? Please, guys, do like and subscribing to the channel, guys. Larry, Ava, how are you, dear Ava? Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Elon, how are you, Elon? Thank you so much for your joining. Sophia, how are you, pretty Sophia? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Sophia. Shivai, how are you, Shivai? Any person can send the laughing disco guys for the support. Lord Ducks, how are you, Lord Ducks? How are you, Lord Ducks? Thank you for your joining, dear Lord Ducks. Amber, how are you, Amber? Welcome, dear. Any person, if can easily play, have to send the laughing disco, yeah. Sharon, how are you, Sharon? Peggy, how are you, Peggy? Maxi, how are you, Maxi? Harish, how are you there, Harish? Every respected member. Barahim, how are you, Barahim? Any superhero can send the laughing disco, guys. Kasim, how are you, Kasim? Ibrahim, how are you, Ibrahim? Increase the likes, every person. Aris, how are you, Aris? Yeah, guys, if you wanna kind of support, you should do a small donation of the super chat, guys. Hambal, how are you, Hambal? Ima, how are you, Ima? Maya, how are you, Maya? Hyunjin, how are you, Hyunjin? Nina, how are you, Nina? Please, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Amira, how are you, Amira? Larry, how are you, Larry? Abdul Rahman, hi, Rahman. Hurry up, guys, to write your name in the chat. Sakuram, hi, Sakuram. Please, guys, to write your name in the chat, guys. Kumai-san? How are you, dear Kumai-san? How are you, respected Kumai-san? Mate, how are you, Mate? Please, guys, to write your name in the chat, every person. Humble, how are you, Humble? Mia, how are you, Mia? Please, guys, you should have to write your name in the chat, guys. You wanna send the laughing disco or do the super chat, guys? Melina, hi dear Melina. How are you, pretty Melina? Thank you so much for you joining. Emma, how are you, dear Emma? Samsung, how are you, Samsung? Danny, how are you, dear Danny? How are you, Danny? Arana, how are you, Arana? Zonera, how are you, pretty? Shambol, how are you, Shambol? Zonera, how are you, pretty Zonera? Lauren, how are you, Lauren? Hi, Lauren, how are you, dear Lauren? Saling, how are you, dear Saling? Nish, how are you, Nish? Thank you so much for you joining, respected Nish. Rose, how are you, dear Rose? Hurry up, guys. Every person to write your name in the chat, guys. You wanna send the laughing disco? Yeah, guys, you wanna send the laughing disco, guys? Zoe, how are you, Zoe? Carolina, hi, Carolina. Zayan, how are you, Zayan? Jacob, how are you, dear Jacob? How are you, dear Jacob? Thank you so much for you joining, dear Jacob. Jonah, how are you, dear Jonah? Thank you so much for you joining, respected Jonah. Lilia, how are you, dear Lilia? How are you, pretty Lilia? Thank you so much for your joining. Any person can send the laughing disco for my support, guys. If you wanna can easily, you will be sent a one laughing disco for my support, guys. You should donate only one laughing disco. Dear Jonah, if you can easily, please, you should have to donate a one laughing disco, my dear. Alex, how are you, dear Alex? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Alex. Thank you so much for your joining. Amia, how are you, dear Amia? How are you, Amia? Florin, how are you, dear Florin? Thank you so much for your joining, guys. Thank you, Florin. Hurry up, guys. Kara, how are you, dear Kara? How are you, respected Kara? Please, guys. Alice, how are you, dear Alice? Any person can do the donation, guys. Thank you so much for your joining. Leona, how are you, dear Leona? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Leona. Aria, how are you, dear Aria? Nal, how are you, dear Nal? Lily, how are you, pretty Lily? Thank you so much for your joining, dear Lily. Lana, how are you, dear Lana? Pop, how are you, dear Pop? Thank you so much for your joining. Please, guys, you should have to write your name in the chat, guys. Raina, how are you, dear Raina? Victoria, how are you, Victoria? Jose, how are you, dear Jose? Bean, how are you, pretty Bean? Thank you so much for your joining. Bimba, how are you, Bimba? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys. Advik, how are you, Advik? Thank you so much for your joining, respected Advik. Nisha, how are you, dear Nisha? Tabassum, how are you, Tabassum? Any person? Seringa, how are you, Seringa? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys. Tasmina. How are you, pretty Tasmina? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys, or do the super chat. Harry, Stella, how are you, dear Stella? Neta, how are you, dear Neta? Hurry up, guys. Ava, how are you, dear Ava? Please, guys, you should have to write your name in the chat, guys. Neton, how are you, Neton? How are you, dear Neton? Jessie, how are you, dear Jessie? How are you, Jessie? Shika, how are you, Shika? Thai, how are you, Thai? Brazil, how are you, Brazil? Cow, how are you, Cow? Raisin, how are you, Raisin? Lilia, how are you, Lilia? Any person can send the laughing disco, guys. Caston, how are you, Caston? Leucas, how are you, Leucas? Haya, how are you, Haya? Hello, how are you, hello? Arnhem, how are you, Arnhem? Rehania, how are you, Rehania? Dia, how are you, Dia? Vime, how are you, Vime? Henry, how are you, Henry? Every person, can you write your name, guys? Any person can write his name in the chat. Texas, how are you, Texas? Any person can write your name, guys. You should write your name. If you want to thinking to support, you should do the support, guys. Click on the gift icon. You wanna send the laughing disco. You wanna send the finger hearts. Laura, how are you, Laura?